Well, no, we operate differently, you know. We operate differently. We believe in, multi-party democracy. The PNC has been one of the main players in the electoral process and the democratic process in our country since 1992. And as I said, we are firm believers and adherents to political stability. So we don't want any type of political stability at this time that will flow from the kind of, internal wranglings we see taking place within the PNC. If there's political stability, that means that we will go to elections that all the parties that have been around for quite some time will do so in good stead, and that is what we would like to see.
Mr. Rohini, Mark's Capital News. Sir, as General Secretary of the PPP, the government in office, do you have an idea of what is stalling the president from calling the date for elections?
Well, I don't have any idea whether it's being stalled in any way. Well, I wouldn't want to engage in tags or labels with respect to the, president's. Well, I mean, after all, that's a constitutional prerogative of the president. So I wouldn't see it as either stalling or delaying. Prorogation of the parliament by the constitution lasts for a particular time. The president made an announcement when the parliament was prorogued that he will make an announcement early in January. Some people criticize that he made an announcement about an announcement. And then he also made an announcement on the New Year's Day, on the eve of the New Year. So I would say, it falls within the president's call to do so by a particular time, and obviously he knows what he's about. The executive of the party is constantly analyzing and assessing and so forth. But at the end of the day, it's the president's call in this respect.
Sir, you're aware that outside of Guyana, that the continued prorogation of Parliament has concerned the diplomatic community as well. I'm sure you would have read the statement from the minister last week, and today the British High Commissioner is saying that this could have repercussions for funding.
Today?
Yes, of Guyana's of programs with Guyana.
Where did he say that today?
Yeah, press conference this morning.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh.
How do you respond to those, sir?
Well, as I see it, it looks to me that some members of the diplomatic corps are becoming more and more involved in our internal affairs, especially when it comes to the holding of elections. Now, it is true also, on the other hand, that the donor community is quite, it's quite understandable for them to be concerned about, elections in Guyana, as donors and so forth. But I think there's a limit to which, we should go when dealing with with such matters. So, I see that as a normal course of their duties. But to make these statements, it's up to the government, on the other hand, to determine whether those statements warrant any responses on the part of the government. But as far as the PPP is concerned, speaking for the party, it might, I think, be going a little bit beyond the pale insofar as diplomatic practice is concerned. And as a former foreign minister, I think I understand the levels to which accredited diplomats should go in a jurisdiction where they have been accredited. So I wouldn't go any further than that.
Mr. Roy, the High Commissioner stated that he was unsure for the current purpose of the prorogation, seeing that the President has said, saying that no talks are going on. So can the PPP state what exactly is the reason for the continued prorogation and why we don't have, or why the President hasn't moved to dissolve and call elections as soon as possible?
Well, again, I can't answer for the President, but I'm saying that all of us know that prorogation was done or executed on the basis of what the Constitution permits, you know, the British High Commission must focus on whether this is a constitutional matter and whether prorogation was done in accordance with the Constitution. Once it was done in accordance with the Constitution. Did he say anything like that? I don't know. I haven't heard him say anything to that effect.
Allow me to ask you this, Mr.
So,
O'Reilly.
but I'm not finished.
I'm sorry.
I'm not finished.
I'm sorry.
So, proroguing the Parliament is within the Constitution. The prorogation could last for a particular period of time. I don't think, and I don't know, how long this prorogation period would last, but constitutionally, it could last for a particular time. But the President has said that, you know, in January, that we will hear about the date for elections, and at the same time the dissolution of the Parliament, you know, within a certain time frame. The President is overseas right now. I don't think he could announce it overseas. We have to wait on him to return to jurisdiction so that he could.
He will announce it this month?
No. I'm not saying that he will announce it this month. I'm saying he said he will announce it soon. But now he's overseas. So I don't think we could expect him to announce it in mid-year or from a foreign jurisdiction. Let him await his return and, you know, allow him to settle down and, you know, read the whistlings in the breeze.
So considering that prorogation is taken from the UK setting, for example, the UK political system, and considering these statements are coming from a representative of the UK, does it not have some weight in terms of looking at the period of time we've had prorogation so far?
You know, I don't want to invoke the musings of the first president of this country, the first executive president of this country. But I'm sure that if you were wrong when you asked a question like that, I'm sure I would know how you would answer it. This country has gotten its independence from Britain since 1966. We don't have to listen to what Britain says in respect to such pronouncements. This is an independent country. The British have their own arrangements there too. So, you know, take it or leave it, twist it or turn it however you want to put it. The fact of the matter is Guyana is an independent country. We have our own constitution. So, like I said, we have to assess the extent to which, you know, some of these musings are taking place. And, you know, wait or no wait, the fact of the matter is our country is an independent country. We have reached where we are now by dint of the hard work of the Guyanese people, you know, and, you know, the strength of our democracy and our constitution.
Sir, in your opening statement, you said the opposition actually wanted to kill the anti-money laundering bill, but the president, by proroguing Parliament and then talking about dissolving Parliament, has effectively killed the bill. Would you insist that this was the opposition doing?
Not really, you know. This anti-money laundering thing was killed long before Parliament was prorogued by the opposition. You know, by the time the president moved to prorogue Parliament, we already knew that the opposition had no interest in the anti-money laundering or counter-financial terrorism bill. So many efforts were made to try to bring everyone to the table. Gail Teixeira made efforts, last-minute efforts before the Parliament was prorogued in order to convene meetings. You know, they didn't take any interest in the matter. So they virtually, you know, stabbed the bill in the back, as it were, before the Parliament was prorogued. So the Parliament had nothing to do with killing the bill, the proroguing of the Parliament.
Sergeant Larry Kaiser News. You keep mentioning the column for election. Is the door totally closed to the possibility of Parliament resuming?
Well, insofar as the leadership of the party is concerned, we haven't actually, you know, discussed that that option or that possibility. So I don't know what is happening on the government side, you know, insofar as the government is concerned. I mean, I'm a member of the government, yes, but I haven't heard any discussions on that. At the party level, nothing has happened on that matter.
Sabina Rockland, Country News. Mr. Ray, good morning.
Good morning.
In your opening statement, you spoke about the internal wranglings in the PNCR, But you quoted party faithfuls, and you said that
I quoted what?
Party faithfuls.
Oh,
You said
okay.
that stalwarts indicated. I'm wondering, did the stalwarts indicate to you? Have you been in talks with party faithfuls in the NCR? Or are you speaking about what you heard or something through the grapevine that has been through a certain amount of channels?
You know, we live in a very small country. You know, almost everybody knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. So very little is secret in Guyana, you know. So when they talk about secret talks, you bet your bottom dollar. All that secrecy will soon be on a lantern post, as we call it.
So, sir, just to clear that up, you got it from somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, not directly.
What I said just now, what I stand by.
Okay.
I don't want to disclose
Second
much
question,
more.
sir. Chevy spoke to you about
Who?
Chevy, Mr. Devonish over there.
Oh, okay.
Yes. About sporulation originating from Westminster or British system. And while taking your point of Guyana being independent, is the PPP not concerned? I mean, there were talks before about the faith in which this was placed into our constitution. Are you not concerned that the source of it is now kind of against it, and which may bring up questions about it being used in a way that it was not supposed to be used?
Not really. I mean, you know, this constitution is a Guyana constitution. You know, there were a lot of consultations and discussions, and I said at an earlier press conference, I think it's somewhere around 2001, the Barnum, as they say, Barnum quote-unquote constitution was amended. You know, a constitutional committee went around the country, had consultations with, you know, all and sundry who wanted to give their thoughts on what the new constitution should look like. It went to the National Assembly for debate and discussion. And whatever is in the constitution now, prorogation or whatever is there, was adopted by the Guyanese people. So there's a Guyana constitution. Whether it was bought from UK and put into the constitution, there are many things like that in the constitution. So, you know, the problem with this matter is that this prorogation hurt the opposition. And some people are seeing this prorogation, you know, as an impediment to their political, you know, agenda. So, you know, I think I'm not so sure to what extent the British High Commission has taken into consideration what Dr. Luncheon has said ad nauseum on this matter, what the President has said publicly on the matter as well. You know, I haven't seen a copy of what he said, whether it was a prepared statement or what, but I look forward to reading what he said with, you know, great anticipation in order to see how balanced what he said was in relation to the government position versus the opposition position. This is not only an opposition matter. The fact that it's being raised here tells me that, you know, there are some concerns in respect to the government. So the opposition got concerns about prorogation, but the government got opposition. The government has concerns about prorogation too. It wasn't something that wasn't a decision that was taken very lightly, you know. It wasn't a decision that was taken very lightly. So, you know, there are concerns on both sides in respect to prorogation. And I think that Guyanese society and politicians are mature enough to understand what these concerns are, what these implications are, and how far we could go with the matter.
Speaking of implications, Mr. Rohi, the Commission also said that there may be plans to lobby the rest of the Commonwealth for Guyana to be labeled a country of concern, and that Guyana can even be suspended from the Commonwealth. Now, the PPP has criticized the AFC as well as APNU for the potential blacklisting of Guyana as a result of their position on the AML bill. Now, how does the PPP respond to these possibilities?
Look, we have elections coming up soon. Elections are on the horizon. So this question of prorogation and harping on a prorogation, in fact, I think we're being a little unfair, if I might say so, because I haven't read what the man has said. You are just telling me what he said and asking me to respond to it. So I'm not fully briefed on what this man, the British High Commissioner, said. You know, I'm just trying to be as gracious as I can to answer these questions. But I think it's a little unfair for me to be answering questions when I myself have not read what the man has said and have digested it, hoping I don't get indigestion, but I'm able to digest it properly, you know, to understand the context in which he was speaking, you know. But we are preparing for elections, and I heard the opposition, all the secret talks and so on. They appear to be preparing for elections too. So prorogation will soon be out of the window, and will soon be a matter of history.
So, that's one final question. Is we be concerned that the lack of a national, the fact that we haven't had a sitting of National Assembly for some months now, is creating an atmosphere of uncertainty within Guyana, and therefore affecting investment and confidence of Guyana's economy for internal as well as external.
If anything like that is happening, it has to be the question of election, the fact that the election is in the air. This is not unusual or peculiar to this point in time. Every time there's elections going on or about to be held in any country, you have these kind of, you know, concerns being expressed. So this is not something that is exceptional or peculiar to Guyana, you know. So I wouldn't give much weight to that issue.
Sir, there is this acronym FUCOP, and you said that that this group is supporting some section of the opposition. The mere idea that there is such an acronym, and the first time we saw it...
By the way, the journalist who asked the question is here?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, they're not here, okay.
Yeah, and the fact that it sounds so fuck up. And we can't seem to wrap our head around the fact that it first originated in a newspaper supportive of the government and the party. Doesn't it sound like a concoction? Strange?
Adam, you know, let me tell you something. I think of all the people sitting in this room, you and I have seen quite a lot in this country. I have seen stories planted, not true. I have seen stories planted in the media. There is experiences of journalists around the world, and I'm speaking about journalists with a high degree of credibility who have written extensively on stories that are planted. And planting of stories come from different directions. I'm not saying that this is a story that was planted, but all that I'm saying, why should it be of exceptional concern on this occasion when there have been other occasions when stories have been planted without any verification, without any solid evidence, and yet, you know, the newspapers go ahead and print it. There are a lot of things that don't have to be true. I read some time ago that the American embassy denied me of a visa of going to America. It never happened. But the man wrote about it and put it in the newspapers, and big academics are running with it. It never happened. I was never ever denied a visa by the U.S. Embassy, but it was written. And all of a sudden people began galloping with it. They weren't only trotting with it, they were galloping with it. You know? And I always tell people, you know, somebody only have to call somebody and say, I saw X individual urinating on a lantern post, and I'm sure it will hit the Kaiecho News, if not in them by some section of the newspaper.
All right. Any other question?
Statement?
Off statement, yes. Two question off statement because we have some other important things.
Okay, Mr. Roy, we saw Sunday? Yes, on Sunday, world leaders in support of, in solidarity with what has happened to the journalist in
Charlie Hebdo.
Yes, Charlie Hebdo. They came out and they stood there with the French officials. Does the PPP, even though not present, would have wanted or is supporting or standing in solidarity?
Even though not present
In Paris.
In Paris. There were world leaders, were representatives in Paris.
No. No, I'm trying to get something here from you.
Even though no representative of the PPP was there.
Was where?
In Paris.
At?
the rally to support Charlie Hebdo.
Well, you see, there's a good journalist. Where, when, how, why?
I thought you were abreast with current affairs, sir, so I didn't think I needed
I
to
am
state
very
it.
much abreast with current affairs, but I want to be a little more precise because the answer that I will give to you depends on the way the question is put.
Okay, sir, are you following now, or you need more explanation?
Well, thankful to Mr. Harris here. You may proceed.
You're welcome on behalf of Mr. Harris. Now, sir, even though the PPP had no representatives there in Paris at the Charlie Hebdo rally, is the PPP standing in solidarity with the Parisian victims, or it's not a concern?
You know, the PPP didn't have to be there physically. The PPP was there spiritually.
Thank you. That's why I
see,
say even though
The
you were there.
PPP was there, not physically, but the PPP was there spiritually.
Thank you, sir.
And you know,
Follow up to
our association with such issues go back, it's inextricably linked to our history. We have fought against terrorism all these years. We know what the monster is like, both as a party and as a country. So, you know, if we were to speak about those events in Paris over the past week or so, the spirit of the PPP, while not being physically there, has been there all the time. Because, you know, we invoke our past experiences and link it to the present experiences. And that's why we have a fulsome understanding of what these things are all about. The root cause of why these occurrences take place. You know, it's a very profound issue. Very profound issue.
Thank you, sir. My final question is, last week you were contacted by one of Kaiser News reporters in relation to this very profound issue. But your response was not very profound at all, and you cut off your phone on the reporter. My question is, how come as the Minister of Affairs you're not so concerned about
Minister
this
of what?
issue? Home Affairs, sorry. Home Affairs.
Of Affairs?
Home Affairs. Home Affairs. You're not concerned about this issue to that extent. And how come as the PPP General Secretary, when contacted them, this spirit wasn't invoked?
I'm not so sure whether I should get into that, you know, because some board, if you know, this thing has to have balance. It doesn't follow that because a journalist picks up a phone and calls me. I could only speak for myself. I can't speak for Mr. Mustafa. If a journalist on another newspaper or somebody picks up a phone and calls me, does it follow ipso facto that automatically I must answer that person, give that person an answer? And because I don't and I say, excuse me, that journalist feels upset and writes about it? What about my side? I have a side too. I have a side too.
Sir, you can state
The
this.
journalist has a side. The fact that they're working professionally for a newspaper. And I've always maintained the fact, you know, that I'm not working with any newspaper for or against any newspaper. I'm doing my job. You get paid to do your job. I get paid to do my job. I have my view. You have your view. And it doesn't mean that because I didn't give the answer to the journalist that the journalist wanted, that should be perceived in a particular way. Come on. I think we need to be fair and balanced here.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Before we will be meeting with GCOM this morning in another half an hour. The General Secretary will be leading a delegation from the PPP to meet with GCOM, and we'll raise concern that the party has. I don't know if I can invite the press to take out for a photo opportunity whilst we go into GCOM at 11:30. Depends.
The first statement reads as follows. The People's Progressive Party notes with deep interest the constant internal political wrangling taking place within the People's National Congress, as demonstrated recently, where another physical clash took place between Granger supporters and Sharma Solomon supporters at Linden, as well as the seething disgruntlement at the grassroots level of the party as regards the militarization of that party structure and leadership, as well as the increasing isolation of party stalwarts from party leaders in the APNU. Compounding the situation is the recent announcement by the maximum leader of the PNC to do away with the utilization of primaries as a basis for determining the presidential candidate of the PNC, coupled with the agreement to enter into secret talks with the Alliance for Change to hammer out a quote-unquote consensus program and to select quote-unquote a consensus candidate, thus excluding the membership of the party at various levels. Party faithfuls are fearful that in a horse trading and bargaining process between the PNC and the AFC, the PNC could very well end up ceding the presidential candidate and key positions to outsiders who, according to party faithfuls, made no contribution to the struggles nor to the strengthening and the development of the PNC. Inevitably, many party stalwarts have indicated that there's a growing sense of alienation, disillusionment, and demoralization among the membership and key activists and supporters of the PNC, which could prove harmful to the political fortunes of that party at the forthcoming general and regional elections. The PVP's concerns over these developments is further compounded over the alarming expose that resources to finance the elections campaign of the PNC-APNU-AFC combination is being mobilized by a gathering of sorts reminiscent of Desmond Hoyt's CREEPS creeps under the guise of the FUCOP. In this connection, it was interesting to hear Mr. Granger pose a rhetorical question to a journalist at a recent press conference, asking whether the journalist ever tried pronouncing the acronym. Excuse me. The PVP has learned that the funding for that party's election campaign via the FUCOP is flowing generously from the coffers of well-established printing and publishing houses and others who have made no bones about their political preferences on the opposition front. Small wonder why the political opposition so staunchly opposed the Anti-Money Laundering and Counter Financing of Terrorism Bill and has shunned any serious discussion on party financing for election campaign purposes. This position was clearly a precursor for what is now being played out in readiness for the elections campaign by the political opposition. The double-speak and double standards in which the political opposition now revels as they gird their loins for the elections campaign clashes with the constant harpings on their part about transparency and accountability, especially when pitched against the excitement to enter into secret coalition talks with the AFC and the methodology being contemplated by way of collusion and connivance to conjure up a joint program and a consensus candidate. In contradistinction, the leadership of the PVP, for its part, continues to enjoy the firm support of its members and supporters, who have been working assiduously to strengthen the party and its structures in pursuance of its inclusionary policy aimed at embracing all Guyanese who are committed to strengthening our national democracy and working for the patriotic and nationalist interests of our country and people, with the bottom line at all times being constant improvement in the well-being of every Guyanese man, woman, and child. The PVP's track record, whilst in government since 1992, can be judged on the basis of people-centered development in health, education, housing, labor relations, restructuring of the financial architecture of the country, the fight against crime, and above all, maintenance of strong macroeconomic fundamentals of the economy, resulting in constant and positive economic growth rates over the past years. As we approach another general and regional elections which must be free and fair, the PVP will work hard to ensure that notwithstanding the social and political repercussions and reverberations which are bound to emerge from the internal wrangling and disagreements within the ranks of the political opposition, Guyana's national democracy will continue to grow from strength to strength, with the working people always at the center of the exciting journey ahead of us as we work unceasingly and uncompromisingly towards another PVPC victory at the polls. The vapid bleatings and feline purrings by the opposition about corruption, lack of transparency and accountability, absence of democratic governance at the executive and parliamentary level, pales into significance when matched against the strides made in the social and economic sectors of our country's development, especially when contrasted against the broken down, ramshackle, bankrupt economy and social and physical infrastructure inherited by the PVPC on assumption to office in 1992. The PVP therefore recognizes the inextricable link between economic democracy, political stability, and sustainable development, particularly within the context of a low-carbon development strategy. The party is prepared, as it has always been, to struggle for the maintenance of political stability and for the constant improvement in the well-being of all Guyanese. The next statement reads as follows. As the nation eagerly awaits the President's announcement on the holding of general and regional elections, the People's Progressive Party calls on the Guyana Elections Commission to spare no effort in ensuring that the upcoming elections are free and fair and without fear. The PVP has single-handedly advocated for a voters list that will not disenfranchise any eligible Guyanese, and one that is clean of discrepancies, thereby eliminating the threat of confusion on E-Day. GECOM must now do everything possible to prepare a clean list and to edify voters of Elections Day practices and procedures. Significantly too, GECOM must be cognizant of the fact that there were many flawed practices and behavior by polling day staff in the 2011 elections. The party is wary of these ill-fated acts, which the party strongly believes were well calculated and mostly against its interests. One can recall the Herstelling case of 19 rejected ballots at one polling station with the official stamp. Strong actions should have been taken against such an individual who took away the democratic rights of simple, hard-working Guyanese. It is expected that these persons will never be considered to work with GECOM again. Further, the party calls on GECOM to ensure that competent and qualified persons are recruited to work on polling day, and the requisite training and simulations are conducted to avoid the debacle of 2011. The PVP had raised several issues regarding the role of information clerks in the 2011 elections and has serious reservations on the use of these persons in future elections. The party is of the view that these individuals were ineffective in their role and served to create much confusion among voters on ED, especially in Georgetown and other parts of Regions 4, 6, 7, and 10. GCOM must revisit the roles and functions of this position, and should the decision be taken to continue the information clerks, then these persons must be properly trained and act in a neutral manner at all times. The party calls on all Guyanese, in and out of Guyana, to demand that GCOM delivers on its mandate and conducts a fair and transparent elections. Improved mechanism must be put in place to deliver accurate and speedy results to the nation so as to reduce anxiety and speculation. Thank you.
Thanks. Yes, there you had the two statements. Now we'll open for questions. Adam?
Adam Harris, Prime News. Sir, you said the PPP is concerned about the internal wrangling within the PNC. Why the concern when such wranglings and, as you say, the attitude of party faithfuls could very well see the party disintegrating, thus paving the way for a PPP runaway victory? Why is the party concerned? You should be